Well, with the recent drama in Europe about the bankrupt nations in the South and the supposedly not bankrupt nations in the North, one can observe a greater historical trend, and this has been well documented, and it often ties into that old theme of Protestant thrift. But basically in Europe, you've always had this idea that the northern nations are the wealthy industrial ones, which is somewhat supported by the evidence. You can look at Scandinavia probably being the northernmost countries, and they are widely seen as having more wealth as well as prosperity. And one reason that I think it's because of this, or why this has happened, is it is that idea of Protestant thrift. The problem with stupid Catholics is they just produce babies. That's about all they're good for. You know, the Irish nation couldn't even feed itself. They couldn't even grow potatoes. Basically what the difference between Northern Europeans and the Southern counterparts, what that difference is that Northern Europeans tend to work. They have smaller families. You can look at this in Scandinavia, where they tend to focus more on a nuclear family, having strong ties to smaller families. But these dumb Catholics, they just go out and they screw around with these women. So if you ever encounter an Irish or an Italian or a Spanish, they're usually dumber. When I went to Europe, I had Spanish trying to rob me, but I never had anybody else trying to come after me. So really what needs to happen, and Pope Francis has even acknowledged this, he said, you Catholics need to stop producing like rabbits, reproducing. Catholics, get an education, stop worshiping a fucking man. The Pope is not God. He's just another man. More often than not, he's a pedophile too, as we've seen. So start working, get employed, and don't produce babies that you can't afford to feed. And then come up to me with your stupid Italian accent. I got kids to feed up in New York. You know, and the Irish too. The Irish are the biggest gang of traitors and thieves that have ever existed. Back in the Civil War, who was on the side of the South? The dumbass New York Irish. They were complaining, but we don't want to be drafted. We don't want to free the blacks. You know, they're just idiot New Yorkers. New York was on the side of the South in the Civil War. Not formally, but if you've ever seen the movie Lincoln and you look into Fernando Wood and all of the Wall Street gangsters, they were quietly rooting for the South, or in some cases openly trying to sabotage the Union. Because the Catholics, more often than not, agreed with the dumb Southerners that the blacks should be kept down. Because remember, what does a Catholic do? They produce babies. They're afraid of competing with the blacks because the Catholics are dumb. They're more focused on having babies than becoming more skilled and more productive. And that is one of the reasons that the Irish went after the blacks in New York back during the Civil War. So you guys can look into this further, but I'm telling the truth. Catholics are dumb. They have too many babies. Protestantism is bad enough, but it was a step forward in history away from the Catholic mindset of just have any babies, God will take care of your children. No, you have to work, you have to produce. You can't just pop out a child and expect somebody else to pay for it, like a typical Western Catholic woman would want. So thanks for listening. Have a good day.